Thank you very much for letting me catch a fish. You talk about a lot of fun. This is McCook's Mr. Billson. Honored to have you here. I'm out here at the park today, and you're here for a story. My grandmother gave me tons of wisdom throughout the lifetime that I knew her. She was born in 1888, and I knew her from the 1950s on as a very small child, adopted out of an orphanage. With that in mind, Grandma taught me a lot of things. And on my wedding day, for an example, she said, talking about the young lady I was about to marry, she said, that girl's going to be your best friend that you ever had, or she'll be your worst enemy. And I think you could say that about young ladies throughout their life period time. For example, I had a young boy and girl, about 8 years old, come up to the candy truck quite often. Holding hands for about 3 days they did, eating out of the same snow cone, absolutely. Puppy love, if you will. On the fourth day, though, I thought I heard something, I couldn't tell for sure, and then crying. And a little kid was crying outside there of the candy truck. So once in a while they'll drop their money under the truck and they'll reach to get it and they'll bang their head. So I got out, went over, and the little boy, he was sitting on the ground holding his eye, and the girl was stomping off. Okay, so I picked up the boy and got him calmed down enough that he could talk, and I said, what happened? And he said, she hit me. And I said, I figured that out, but what did you do to her? And he said, all I said is maybe we should break up. A girl can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And when the young ladies get into high school, they don't get any more mellow, hardly. Young lady came out of the high school and she came up to the truck before the bell rang at noon, and all the kids would be coming running out like a bunch of banshees to go downtown to eat. She got there ahead of them, up to my candy truck, and she said, Mr. Bill, can I have a cup? So I handed her out one of my cups. I said, sure, there you go. And she walked around the front of my van, and I didn't notice. It looked like she bent down. I assumed she had some books in her hand, so I assumed she dropped something out of her books. And I could see a few people starting to mill around over by the school. They hadn't started to come over yet. She then stood back up, but when she stood up, she had a cup, the same cup, but it was full of yellow liquid, a yellowish liquid. She walked to the car just ahead of me, opened up the door, and threw it in on the seat. Just dumped it in the seat. Closed the door, threw the cup down, and walked away. Okay. Here came the herd, including the owner of that car and his buddy. They started to get in the car, and the owner jumped back out and saying naughty words. And while he was came over, then got paper towels from me. And his buddy said that he'd made the mistake of breaking up with his girlfriend that morning. Add fuel to the fire. He asked his girlfriend's best friend to go with him, and her best friend, she said yes. So she was hot and mad and wanting to get even. A girl can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And if by chance you think once a girl grows into a woman, a lady, if you will, you think you might be safe, and you'd be mistaken. The worst case I've ever heard of, is that a young man and woman had gotten married, had a couple of kids, and she wanted out. She wanted a divorce. And she wanted a lot more than what he was willing to give. And so what she did, she went to one of her relatives, a law enforcement officer, and the law enforcement officer went over and picked him up and took him down to the police station and said, we're going to charge you, mind you, with child abuse. You're abusing the children. And he said, let's give you a lie detector test. Gave him a lie detector test, and the police officer said, you failed the lie detector test. He said, I wouldn't know if I passed or failed it. He said, who knows? They never showed me anything, but they said I'd failed it. Okay. And the officer then said, we'll cut you a deal. He said, what we'll do, we'll drop those charges, otherwise they'll be with you forever, but we'll drop those charges if you give her everything that she wants in the divorce. He was a scared young man, and he caved and gave everything and had to start from scratch. Never forget what my grandmother's words were. A girl can be your best friend or your worst enemy. You guys have a safe summer. Thanks for watching.